projects, prior projects.
What's that?
Similar projects, prior projects, I'll answer that.
Yeah, I know they had Bay Bridge taking vacation. That one I know.
They did, like, our supplemental cable project on the Bay Bridge. American Bridge, who's on the team, did the redecking of that suspension station years back. So
Okay.
they've done work for us.
Where'd it go? Great. Good morning. My name is Paul Wiedefeld. I am the chairman of the Maryland Transportation Authority Board. Today is Thursday, August 29th, 2024. I hereby call the meeting of the MDTA Board to order at 9 a.m. This morning, we're having our meeting in person at MDTA headquarters. In accordance with the live stream law, this meeting is being live streamed on the MTA Board webpage. I would like to say welcome to the members of the staff who are with us today. For the record, Member Sneed is joining us via the conference call this morning. As a reminder, I ask that anyone who is in the room with us this morning to refrain from speaking unless you're presenting or answering a question to avoid background noise on the live stream. I would also like to ask the members to speak loudly and clearly so those in the back of the room are able to hear you. Also, please say your name when motioning or seconding to help with meeting minutes. There are no members of the public, no elected officials, and no media who have pre-registered to comment at this morning's meeting. For those who are watching this meeting via the live stream, we have posted the materials for today's meeting on the MDTA Board webpage so that you can follow along if you would like. We'll now begin today's meeting. The first meeting agenda item is the approval of the open session meeting minutes of July 25th.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a
Member
second?
Cox.
Second. Member Gaines. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. The second agenda item is the approval of the closed session meeting minutes of July 25th, 2024.
So moved, Member Ganjemi.
Is there a second?
Second. Member Rosen.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rosen, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. The third agenda item is an update on all open contracts. Donna?
Good morning,
Good.
everyone.
Good morning.
Happy to be here. The first contract, I have two contracts to report this morning, but the first item is the open contracts report in accordance with the board operating policy to provide a quarterly update. We currently have 216 open contracts in the amount of $2,917,479,218.18. That consists of 24 MOUs, 74 architect and engineering contracts, 36 construction contracts, 29 maintenance contracts, 21 service contracts, and 31 IT contracts. Of that amount, we have paid $1,849,700,460.53, and we have $471,140,127.13 in open contracts. Natalie, I'll provide these numbers to you so that you don't have to write them down. I'll send them to you. And that concludes my open contracts report.
Any questions for Donna? Seeing none, thank you, Donna.
Okay.
Thank you.
My first contract this morning is for JO1P4600124 APC server cooling hardware. This is to upgrade our MDTA infrastructure services to replace critical inline cooling and uninterruptible power supply systems, both at the ICC and the JFK highway data centers. We received 3 bids off of the master IT contract. This was a PO-RFP. We are recommending award to Applied Technology Services in the amount of $1,626,989.74. It is 18.65 below the engineer's estimate. This was a rebid, and we didn't adjust our quantities, but we did do a fair and reasonable determination, and the prices were determined to be fair and reasonable with the manufacturer's suggested retail pricing. So we are recommending award for this contract to Applied Technology Services. There was no MBE or VSBE goals assigned to this contract for the single element of work.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, how long is the contract for, Donna?
It's a one-time purchase,
Just one time?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, we make these purchases as they get to end of life.
Any other questions? Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Member Gaines. Second, Member
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. The fifth agenda item is the approval of the contract award for the Francis Scott Key Bridge replacement. Donna?
Again, this is Donna DeCerbo for the record. I am presenting KB 49030000 for the replacement of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. This contract was a RFP. We're seeking the services of a qualified designer to undertake the complete design and construction of the Francis Scott Key Bridge replacement. This contract will utilize a progressive design build process that will form a partnership between MDTA and the designer builder with the goals of mitigating risk, streamlining the design process, improving the decision-making process, and developing a project that best meets the goals of the FSK Bridge replacement. Work in the progressive design build process will advance in 2 phases. We are recommending award for Phase 1. This is project development services, and Phase 2, project delivery services. The RFP stated that technical was more important than price, and this is a not-to-exceed contract amount of $73 million for Phase 1 services only. And we are awarding to Kiewit Infrastructure, who is rated first technically, third financially for an overall ranking of first. We did have a protest received on this contract. Archer Western Trailer Brothers joint venture was rejected. They did protest. We responded to that protest, and no appeal was received. There is a 26% DBE goal. These are federal funds, so it's a 26% DBE goal, and Kiewit is exceeding that goal by 26.53%.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions from members?
Mr. Chairman.
Member Von Paris?
Yes, I have one question. In our financial forecast, we assumed a replacement cost of $1.7 billion. But in this item, we noted an evaluated price of $1.23 billion. Are these numbers unrelated?
Yes, they are unrelated. The $1.23 billion total estimated cost columns represents assumptions we told the offers in the RFP. We gave them 67, for the evaluated proposal price, we gave them a number of 67 million for Phase 1, and for Phase 2, we gave them 1 billion. So we gave them the assumptions, and what we asked them for in their pricing proposal was their actual markup. That's all that was on the price proposal. Give us your markup for Phase 1 and Phase 2. This allowed us to compare apples to apples when we're evaluating price in this process, but we are awarding, again, this contract in the not-to-exceed amount of $73 million, not the $1.2 million.
Okay, thank you.
Member Cox?
I guess this is for Jim. I mean, I know a little bit redundant, and I want to commend your whole team for going through this process and getting where we are after the horrific event, March 26th, and the loss of lives, but a little bit about how you got to this point as far as technical and pricing, a little bit of exactly how you got to this point where we are today.
Okay, thanks. For the record, my name is Jim Harkness. I'm the Chief Engineer for Maryland Transportation Authority, and today is a culmination of 5 months of work, and would like to just state that I'm very proud and appreciative of all the work that the teams have done, the MDTA team in procurement and finance and engineering and construction, as well as our federal partners and, of course, our state highway administration partners as well. So for this RFP, we were looking for, it was going to be qualifications-based, as Donna stated. We were not looking at pricing as much as we were consideration of the qualifications of the proposers. So we had evaluation factors listed in the RFP, and that was the basis for the proposal. So we were looking at the key staff for the teams, who was going to be on that team, what have they done in the past, what experience do they have, their performance on projects of a similar size, a similar importance, We were looking at their proposed project approach, the collaboration, how they manage projects, how they handle permitting, and also how they mitigate risks. And then also just cost estimating, because we started this project with almost no design from which to start from, which is why technical was higher than pricing. We were then looking at how are they going to be, how do they do with cost estimating, what's their models. It's an open book estimating that we're looking for as we move into phase 2 in order to reach that guaranteed maximum price and deliver construction. So those are the evaluation factors that went into, that the team considered when they were looking at these proposals.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Chairman, if I may ask several questions.
Of course.
First of all, there's the terminology of partnership. Can you just explain what that means?
Yeah, so partnership, we have a formal partnering process, which we do on most of our projects. But in this progressive design build, we're going to take that to a whole nother level because we're also looking for collaboration. Because we don't have the design from which to base their proposal, we are going to be collaborative with the design builder, with the Kiewit team. We're going to be working side by side. We're going to have input on what we need to see as an owner, and they're going to be able to give us input on what they would be able to do as a design build team, as well as that impact on schedule, pricing, that kind of thing.
Thank you. Do we have a time frame for the completion of Phase 1?
We're estimating that phase 1 services would be completed in 12 months.
12 months? Okay, thank you. Thank you. And can we talk a little bit about, is there, and I'm assuming this will come into Phase 2, incentive to complete on time or cost escalations?
Yes, you're right. So those type of considerations are phase 2 items when we're into construction. We do have specifications that we use in order to help mitigate on contractor risk for price increases and also our risk, quite frankly. And then we would be, of course, we've notified them in the RFP that we would be looking at incentives in order to complete the work by our requested date.
Mr. Chairman.
Member Gates?
Jim, when do you see Phase 2 starting? In a year, or would some of that start before Phase 1 was
So-
finished?
The way that we are anticipating this to go, our phase 1 services would kick off, and we would want to get to about a 50% or 60% design level, and then hopefully at that point be able to have a good opinion on probable construction cost, and that would enable us to enter into a guaranteed maximum price at that time. So that could be 6 months from now, which would be that would be the earliest I think we
Right.
would be able to get to that. And then that's when phase 2 services would be able to kick off.
And the demolition is going to be part of Phase 1, demolition of remaining superstructure.
Right, it's phase, demolition is not considered construction in this case, so that can occur before phase 2.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you, Jenna. And I know we've touched on it in a previous meeting, but can you just reiterate the process for the evaluation of the cost and for this, every intention of this would be the contractor going forward.
However, we do have to evaluate cost at a certain point, and there is an opportunity potentially that another contractor would do that. If you can just reiterate what that process is like.
Okay, right, so as we were discussing just a minute ago with this process where we would get to the probable opinion of cost and a guaranteed maximum price negotiation, that's where we would be looking to sync up in terms of our cost estimating and independent cost estimating and the contracting team's estimating. And all of that would allow us, at that point, we have an option if we can't come to terms that we have a way to proceed forward with the project. But because of this collaboration that's going to start, today, hopefully, that we would be able to get to that point and be fully aware of what's going into the project what the pricing should be, and we should be able to come to terms. So we're really hopeful that that's the case.
Any other questions from members? If not, I'll seek approval for KB 4903000, Francis Scott Key Bridge Replacement Project. Is there a motion?
Member Ganjemi, I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. If I could, I did want to make one comment. Jim, as hard as this has been, obviously, to go through this process and all the work it took to do that, it cannot be the level of effort that you've shown as a member of Unified Command, dealing with the day-to-day, hour-to-hour issues we've been dealing with on that bridge, at the same time doing your job as chief engineer and preparing this solicitation and going through this process is just to be commended. So I just want to thank you publicly. You've done a fantastic job under unbelievable circumstances. Just want to thank you, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Agenda item number 5 is, number 6 is the Francis Scott Key Bridge turnaround, the temporary suspension of collection of tolls. Ms. Green?
Good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, Chantel Green, Director of Finance here at the Authority. Today, I'll be requesting the board's approval to temporarily suspend tolling at the FSK Bridge turnaround until the new bridge is opened. I'd like to start out by directing your attention to the key takeaways at the top of page 1. The continued suspension of tolling at the turnaround until the new bridge is opened or completed allows for the efficient use and management of traffic on other portions of the Authority's facilities. Traffic volumes at the turnaround during June and July of 2024 are slightly above fiscal year 2023 traffic levels. The most recent traffic and revenue update accounts for the foregone revenue associated with the turnaround until the new bridge opens. As such, the June 2024 financial forecast that was approved by the board is not further impacted by the proposed action. Prior to the FSK Bridge collapse, vehicles on the inner loop of 695 requiring access to Broning Highway used the FSK Bridge turnaround. As the table on page 2 of the memo shows, for the months of June and July 2024 combined, turnaround movements for 2-axle and 3 or more axle vehicles increased by 6% and 5% respectively compared to the prior year. In total, turnaround movements increased by 5% compared to the preceding year. I would just like to note that this is merely 2 months' worth of data. Therefore, it may not be reflective of a full fiscal year's worth of data in terms of transactions. As a reminder, the Authority has not tolled the turnaround movement since the bridge collapse. Although the Authority's trust agreement prohibits free passage, the trust agreement contains a limited exception that allows temporary suspension of the collection of tolls for the efficient use and management of traffic on transportation facilities, roadways, in the event of catastrophic situations such as the collapse of the bridge. The MDTA plans to put up signs by the end of the summer advising motorists of the temporary suspension of tolls. Staff will continue to monitor traffic in the coming months, and should there be a need to bring a subsequent agenda item to the board for reconsideration, we will do so. With that, unless, Bruce, you have anything else to add? Good job. Okay. Thank you. This concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Any questions for Ms. Green?
Are we at least tracking or at least have an idea what we're losing? I mean, I think we do, and I assume that would go into our claim, right?
Yes, I mean, we track transactions weekly.
Yeah, what you said, the results for the 2 months, we will continue to do that. We can because we do it by class.
Got it.
The counters for the toll transactions are.
I mean, we're inconveniencing folks in the area, so I think it makes sense that they don't have to pay a toll. However, we've lost revenue, so we got to get it back somehow. Thank you.
Move for approval.
Mr. Cox, or Member Cox, move for approval. Is there a second?
I'll second. Member Ganjemi.
All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Green.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 7, remittance of insurance proceeds. Ms. Sharpless?
Good morning. For the record, my name is Deborah Sharpless, MDTA's Chief Financial Officer. The purpose of this item is to request the board's approval to remit the full amount of the property and business interruption insurance proceeds related to the collapse of the Key Bridge to the federal government. I also will start with key takeaways. Please note that this change in assumption regarding how these proceeds are handled will not materially impact MDTA's financial metrics, and also that we will continue to remain in compliance with our financial goals and legal standards through fiscal year 2027, consistent with the forecast that the board approved in June. So in that June forecast that was approved, an assumption that we made was that we would retain $68 million of the insurance proceeds associated with business interruption and 10% of eligible costs. This item is requesting that we remit that amount to the federal government, which essentially means that we are using 100% of the insurance proceeds towards the reconstruction of the Key Bridge, as well as the debris and salvage operations that we did. We're making this request in good faith and partnership and commitment towards the objective of MDTA receiving 100% federal funding. This has been a commitment of the Biden administration and a commitment of the Governor Moore, as well as the Secretary, to commit these proceeds to the rebuild of the bridge. And so when in the next financial forecast, pending this approval, we will incorporate this assumption into the forecast. And again, it does not materially change our financial position. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
You're saying that because we had only accounted for 68 million in that anyway, because the other remainder was already going to the federal
That's right.
government. Okay.
That's right.
I think this is it demonstrates good faith, as the memo indicates, and I think it's a good path forward for the MDTA. I think it's a good decision. Thank
Any
you.
other further comments, questions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second by Mr. Gaines. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Agenda item number 8 is approval of quarterly review of the investment strategy. Mr. Carmen? Good morning.
I just got a message that my PC's crashing, so I'm working.
You're a pro. You're fine.
I'll try to remember all the key points. So the first agenda item is our investment strategy and benchmarks, and we come to you each quarter to seek approval of the continuation of that strategy. And, Deb's my savior today. Thank you. So we're not recommending any changes at this time, and that's typical for us. And a few of the key points are that the portfolios during the period adhered to the investment policy and also the board-approved strategy in terms of duration and the types of investments that were purchased. And I think it's helpful maybe within the context of the Fed to talk about the two major categories of accounts within our portfolios. So we have some matched funding accounts. Those are our capital monies and our operating monies. So of the over $800 million portfolio at the end of June, about $450 million of that is in those matched funding accounts. So for the bond service accounts, we pay debt service out twice a year, and the money flows into those accounts or is set aside every month. So we know exactly when the money's needed, and so we can structure those investments to match those outflows. And I think it's helpful to understand in this inverted yield curve environment is that you would typically stagger those investments out over several months to match the outflow, but short money market rates are much higher than 6-month or 3-month T-bills or short agencies, and so you're put in a position where you're looking at it on a scenario basis. How much would the Fed have to cut and how quickly in order for you to be better off buying those staggered maturities versus just sitting in overnight investments in a money market mutual fund or the Maryland local government investment pool. And so we have a bit of discretion, and in recent months we've been invested more in overnights because of the significantly higher yields. And even when we've done scenario analysis with some aggressive Fed cutting of 50 basis points, at each of the next couple of meetings, based on that spend out and the steepness of that inversion in the front end, we're better off leaving that money in overnight investments. So our money market funds are yielding over 5%. Maryland Local Government Investment Pool is about 5.3% yesterday. But if you step out a few months, you're giving up so much yield. So that's the same strategy employed in the capital monies as well. So we're forecasting a depletion of those monies by the end of the fiscal year, and so we probably having a financing sometime early next fiscal year. So that gives you a sense of how quickly those monies would be spent out. For the longer term monies, we've selected benchmarks to take advantage of having a longer duration strategy. So the $400 million in unrestricted cash that's held as a reserve, those monies in the general account are invested out to 5 years, and in the smaller M&O reserve that's $50 million, they're staggered out to 15 years, so an average maturity of about 7 years. By design, those are structured so that we're accepting some return volatility that we believe is manageable in exchange for higher average annual returns. So over the last year, this question might come up, and we talk about it in the detail with the Finance Committee, is that at times when rates are rising, we have negative returns, and then we have strongly positive returns when rates fall. So rates have stabilized more or less over the last 12 months or through that trailing period. So the return for the longer reserves was a bit over 4%, and for the short money in the match funding accounts, it's a bit over 5%. So since June 30th, rates have come down significantly, and so we have big mark-to-market gains. And just since the end of June, our 1 to 5 year benchmark has returned about 4%. So in just under 2 months, you've gotten the whole return of last year at 4%. So I think the key message is that the investment committee doesn't attempt to time the market or forecast rates. We've adopted these very long-term strategies, and we don't change that strategy. So those longer-term monies are duration targeted. We maintain that duration target, and we don't try to time the market or try to outguess the Fed, what's happening with inflation or unemployment. So the last, I guess, point to make is that we're seeking a continuation of those same investment strategies for accounts for the upcoming quarter.
Okay.
And I would open it up to questions.
All right, any questions from any member? Mr. Von Paris is chairman.
First of all, I want to say you do a tremendous job, and thank you for everything that you do on behalf of MDTA. The Finance Committee discussed this as well, and it's noted in the memo. And we also, it was unanimous to stay the course, as described here, the continuation of the current investment strategies. So, for all accounts. So thank you. So I would make a motion that we move forward with this.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
That's right. Agenda item number 9 is the investment policy. Alan, as well?
These are nicely joined together today. So our investment policy is required to be reviewed by the board's operating policy at least annually. The investment policy itself also requires that same annual review. We reviewed the policy in a bit more detail with the Finance Committee, and we're not recommending any changes at this time. The investment policy is relatively conservative, and it's really legal limitations are born out of the trust agreement, and the trust agreement itself somewhat mirrors state law. So it's important to understand that the MDTA's investments are not bound by that state law. It's just that they happen to mirror some of the state law in the annotated code. It's interesting to note that the state law has changed recently to expand some of the investment types. At this time, we're not recommending any changes to our own policy, but it's something we'll be looking at in the coming year. Our policy has certain limitations, and those limitations are designed for conservatism. So the limitations are the security types that we can buy, the amounts of those particular security types in terms of diversification, and that's both by individual issuer and by sector. We have maturity limitations that limit the interest rate volatility that we can tolerate. And it's interesting, I think the changes in the state law open us up to some potential to buy additional security types. And so one of the examples I just wanted to bring up at this time, rather than wait a year, is just to give you some understanding, is that the state can now buy G10 sovereign debt. And so that would be another opportunity in our portfolio on a relative value basis to buy something that's potentially higher yielding. I'm not super excited about it today because interest rates in the U.S. are higher than the G10 nations. So it's something that might be helpful in the future in our toolbox, but it doesn't offer any relative value now. So I just wanted to give you that example so that when we talk about it a year from now and we talk about potentially adding some security types, the reasoning isn't necessarily because it's a good opportunity now, but that it could be at some point when rate environment changes. The team that manages the portfolio at MDTA consists of the investment committee, and then we take our direction and we give recommendations to the board. The investment committee consists of the executive director, the CFO, the director of finance, myself. We also involve our external advisors in that. We have quarterly meetings to discuss strategy and performance, and then we bring that information to the board as is required by the policy. And the policy itself requires that type of reporting. We're also required to come back to the board if we experience downgrades in the portfolio or a failure to adhere to the investment policy limitations. So I think in closing, we are requesting completion of this annual review and an approval of the investment policy, which is unchanged.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, is there a motion?
This member again, Jimmy, I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Approval.
Member Arndinger, I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job. Agenda item number 10, the Executive Director's Report. Mr. Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kind of combining a little bit of Key Bridge update and my report, although obviously you heard great updates in terms of the approval items that you had to get to this point. I'd like to echo some of the comments that Jim made and the chairman made. The staff has done an incredible job throughout the agency to help us achieve the point where we've got your approval on these items. I also just want to state that we owe a lot to the contracting and consultant community that has done the bidding on this work, and it's a lot of effort. I think some of you that have experienced that in your businesses know how much can go into proposals. When I started back in January, I presented to a group of folks at an annual Maryland conference and said, hey, I can appreciate, we're going to time these things. We're going to not, be forcing over policies and everything else. And I basically lied to them. We have really had an aggressive schedule to get these contracts out. The GEC contract that we're relying on as our kind of owner reps will be due back to the authority on September 5th. And the following week, we have every expectation of advertising the CMI contract, that RFP. So, a rapid pace to get this done. Jim's already shared with you some of the dates on that, but we have a few other items that are coming up that are milestones. Some are part of a process, but they are an opportunity for the public to comment on our process. For instance, on September 17th, the Department of Environment is holding an information hearing on our rebuild permit applications for purposes. We already had one hearing on the demolition. So that kind of outreach continues, as well as the other engagements that we're doing. The team continues to be out in the community events. There's a complete list of our pop-up events that can be found on the Key Bridge, the rebuild site at keybridgerebuild.com. That will continue, but it's really good that we are at this stage to have that partner on board with us to advance the project. Shifting from the Key Bridge, we also keep moving forward on other work. So just yesterday, the Board of Public Works, did approvals that you all have already done for a contract item for our tolling contract, and they also approved some changes to the A&E contracts that help us continue the work of the authority. In August, just on a little bit of a lighter note, I attended the meetings that the chairman sponsored as secretary to meet with all the local governments. So I sat in on the ones with the counties that affect our facilities, and I would like to thank the secretary and the entire MDOT staff who helped organize the meetings. Mary helped get us ready to make sure we were prepared for questions from all of the local elected officials that we met with. We had a really good reaction. It was a good opportunity to provide them some updates about our program. With that summer wind down, we have a couple things in the future. We launched this year, we've done summer travel campaigns. This year it was very important that we did a fall travel campaign, just helping people understand in the Baltimore region, what they need to prepare for, what they're facing through the I-95 and 895 corridors. So I'd like to thank the communications team for their work on that and really getting the message out to the public to plan ahead, look at what your trip will entail. Some of you all are experiencing it coming here today when you're right down in this region. So we've got that going on. Again, we have that type of information on our webpage. The one thing I'd like to highlight, we talked about this earlier, the mobile app that was launched earlier this summer. Had an opportunity to sign up for it myself, just to see, and that provides you not instant feedback, but when you end your trip, you have a chance to look at your notifications on your phone. Your toll was paid. It was read. It'll tell you at the low balance. If you all haven't downloaded that app, I encourage you to do so, and I encourage the public to do so. We have 142,000 subscribers so far, according to the team. So just want to highlight that feature because we are the AET all open toll road tolling. Excuse me. It's important that people keep track of their accounts. Again, we have constant support for different events that take place in our community. One of them traveling through the community on I-95 is the 9/11 America's Ride. They returned to the Maryland House this year, so I just want to commend the staff of Arius and our operations and the MSP and the police and other folks who help support that event. They travel a great distance, and that is a really good stop and a really good commemoration. So I just wanted to thank the staff for that. And then on a little bragging, just want to commend our finance staff. So for the 11th consecutive year, we've received a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the production of the 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. So just want to do a shout out to the members of the finance team involved in that. That includes Vicki Dobbins, Ted Williams, Ken Montgomery, Alan Garman, Chantel Green, and Deb Sharpless. So a few of those folks in the room today. Very important work as you all are undertaking such significant things to know that our financial reporting is solid in receiving that type of award on a continual basis. Looking ahead, again, we have our fall tour with MDOT. So the Transportation Authority will be joining our other modal administrations from September 17th through the 28th for meetings around the state. Nice compact schedule, some really long days in there, but we're looking forward to getting out to the jurisdictions and hearing more from the public and again the elected officials in that public setting for those meetings. On September 19th, this is also it's MDTA wide, but with the business coming our way with the Key Bridge rebuild, we really want to reach out to our business community and our partners. So on September 19th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the MDOT headquarters building, where we're hosting Division of Civil Rights and Fair Practice will be hosting this, and doing business with the Maryland Transportation Authority. So we do these periodically. Percy and his team have really geared up for this one because we were hoping for good attendance and good messaging about what this process is. The progressive design build and a lot of the other things we're doing are people have a lot of questions. There's a lot of attention about them, so we know we have to go to an extra effort to get the word out on what opportunities still exist in our contracting world. So anyone interested can email MDTA outreach at mdta.state.md.us to learn more. And on a couple final notes, we have the Susquehanna River Writing Festival scheduled for September 21st coming up. And on a more serious note, the planning for our big future potential projects is the Bay Crossing study public meetings that are being planned for later this year, likely early December. So still working all the time on the work of the MDTA to make sure our facilities are prepared for the public in the future. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the Executive Director or comments? See none. At this point, the agenda is complete. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Mr. Chairman, Member Cox.
Second?
Member Gaines.
Member Gaines. All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. This now concludes the meeting of the MDT.